Dun, 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 dun. Dun, dun, dun. Hey, everybody. Welcome to TPIM. That's our live. Today's date, February 17th, 2020, the year of our Lord. I'm your host, True Power is Mine. Welcome to the show. I know it's been a minute, y'all. I want to thank the Most High. I want to thank the Most High for allowing me another day, another opportunity to do the show. Brothers and sisters from all over the world, want to thank you all for supporting the show. Thank you for bearing with me as I go through my own personal tribulations and adjustments. But the Spirit has totally moved me today to share real history that pertains to us. Without further ado, let's get into the show.
And so it's that whole piece of what we tolerate. And God have kind of blessed us because the only thing that makes us a little safe, and we haven't had them do to us what they did in Germany with Hitler, is we don't have an honest demagogue in America. Yeah. Hitler, with all his crazy, he was honest. He told us what he's going to do. He wasn't stealing money and all that. And so consequently, if we stop being frightened and stop being afraid, and then we can see, we sit here and know that the Wall Street boys determine what legislation, and you ain't gonna say a damn thing about it at all. We take.
Brother King, welcome to the show. Peace and power. This is what I'm talking about. What Brother Gregory just now said. We got to quit being fearful. If you want to change your political position, you got to change your economic standing. That's why reparation is so critical. If not, then they are going to do to us what they did to the Jews in Germany. You best believe your bottom dollar on that. We have to get to a point where we stop being political ping pong balls, going from one paddle to the other paddle, getting hit, bip, over the fence you go, bip, back over the fence you go, bip. And that's how we run. Republican, Democrat, Republican, Democrat. But there should be a smack each time I say that. Republican, smack, back to Democrat, smack, back to Republican, smack, and everyone gets their agenda fulfilled. Isn't it great, y'all? We live in a nation where two men can make love and get married, and loose women can run around here having abortions as a form of child control, birth control. Isn't it a great day? But you young black men and women are still at risk of being discriminated against in housing, discriminated against in schooling, discriminated against in a traffic stop that ends in your murder. Brother Bird, peace and power. Welcome to the show. We have to understand that this thing didn't start with us. None of us was alive when this thing started rolling out. So that's why I'm not buying it. It can't be stopped. It can be. But those who should be stopping it are getting benefits from it. So don't hold your breath, brothers and sisters. Let's continue. Real history.
Stuff off of them that we wouldn't take off of each other. But that's okay. That's why I can't understand how you call yourself Christians and can be for capital punishment. Well, for two reasons. First, don't you know the state killed Jesus? So how can you cry over the crucifixion of Jesus and be for capital punishment? He was killed by the state. He wasn't run down by some drunken chariot driver.
Brother, Hey, Juan, welcome to the show. Peace and power. You know, I have to reach out. This is just a side note. Friday, I was going to have on Brother Sean James. And I have to reach back out to him and get him on. It's going to be a great show. But that's what I'm talking about, yeah. If you claim to be religious, you claim to be morally just, morally correct, then how can you not see the moral justification for melanated men and women to receive reparations? How could you possibly come to a conclusion that making people right, doing right by the descendants of people who were done a grievous wrong rather, is incorrect? Let's continue.
And if Jesus Christ came back, that's why I stopped. That's why I stopped going to my Baptist church on Easter. So I'm so tired of you black folks every week. Were you there when they crucified the Lord? You know, that's a cheap song to sing 2,000 years later. You wasn't there then, and most of you wouldn't show up now. And if Jesus Christ came back to America today and bugged the wrong people, they give him an electric chair. And all us Christians be walking around with big chairs around our neck, right? How do you make the sign of the chair? How do you make the sign of the chair?
You said once, I think I saw in my research, you said once that you learned a lot about comedy in the church. I
learned everything.
Talk about that.
Well, first, I'm born 1932, right? And so there was no TV, just radio. And come out of the ghetto, never been around white folks. And so all the white comedians, they wouldn't seem funny to me. But, you know, you young folks, you have to understand where you are today. I mean, I'm born 1932. We were so dumb, we used to listen to tap dancers on the radio. I mean, can you believe, especially you old black folks? Hey, old black folks now, I don't know what's wrong with these young ones. When we was their age, we didn't have to lock no doors. You didn't have nothing. I'm so poor and hungry and ragged when I was a child. The best day we had in our house was Halloween. That's the day you could wear your natural clothes. And everybody thought you was dressed for the occasion. Woo, look at Richard, got on shoes, look just like feet.
So the church, we're talking about the church.
Well, we didn't have nightclubs in St. Louis. And the ones we had was blues and jazz. So there were no comedies. Mm-hmm. So when I hit it big and someone said, where did you learn your comedy? And I realized mine's not comedy, it's humor. And I learned the black church, black preacher. I can just speak for black preachers, white probably the same. Have a new sermon every week, 52 sermons, and don't have Hollywood writers. And never give the same sermon over. And they are funny. They don't leave the house to go to church to tell you jokes. It's just something when you into that zone. Like the funniest laugh you ever had in your life didn't come from no professional comedians, come from friends and relatives. You'd be laying all over on the floor. They tell the same jokes every Thanksgiving, the same way. The difference between being funny and being a comedian is timing. Timing. Huh? Well, why would you need timing if you talking from your spirit, from your heart? And so that's what I realized, that Hugh Hefner, before Hefner brought me in,
He brought you to the Playboy Club.
Playboy.
Right?
A Negro comic couldn't work white nightclubs. You could sing, you could dance, but you couldn't stand flat-footed and talk.
You were the first flat-footer.
First. Now, before that, when I look at the Bill Cosby's and the Richard Pryor and all these brilliant black comics, I think about in the last 100 years when we weren't permitted, how many of those did we waste? How many of them was there? And so consequently, before that, we was hustlers, not negative. When the supermarkets won't let me sell my oranges in the supermarket because I'm Negro, I set a stand up outside and say, that's called hustling. And then Hefner came through and said, bring your oranges in here. And if you go back and check the records, in those days, they always put Negro in front of my name, which didn't bother me. Negro comedian. Then when Bill Cosby came through, you see, because as long as you couldn't work a white nightclub and you was reduced down to hustling, funny, brilliant. And then when that door opened and we were able to work white clubs, then that changed from hustling to an art form. An art form. And what makes Bill Cosby so genius is the same thing that made Michelangelo, all the great artists, because he paint pictures with his voice, and you see it. There was no need for that before. And so consequently, the door is open now. White women, black women, Asian women, that one knockdown created what you see now.
What do you think of some of the comics that are coming along now?
I love them.
Chris Rock.
I love them. One of my grandchildren told me, if you go to the movie, Granddad, and the music too loud, you're just too old to be in there. Because, I have 10 children and 12 grandchildren, and I listen to them, and then I realize how dumb we were. I mean, February the 2nd is Groundhog Day. What's a groundhog? I go all over the world, been in every restaurant you can go to. I've never seen a groundhog on the menu. And if you don't eat it, it don't exist. But listen what they tell us. On February the 2nd, if the groundhog sees his shadow, you know the story, right? 6 more weeks of winter. Now, spring is March 21st. And when you get home, get your calendar and count from February 2nd to March 21st. That is 6 weeks. Groundhog ain't got a damn thing to do with it.
And this is what we're talking about. The perception. All of our perceptions has been skewed. Just like your political leaders really don't have nothing to do with your true liberation. It's an economic thing in the society, point blank. But Bubba Dick Gregory said, until Hugh Hefner, the porno smut dealing character, Playboy kingpin, brought him in, he was not economically viable. And it's because of that act by a man that a lot of church folks would look down on. Dick Gregory's genius probably would never have been recognized to the extent it has worldwide. This is the condition that we are in, brothers and sisters. Other groups use and harness economic viability in many different ways. Traditionally, it was making some sort of corner store and everyone in the neighborhood Patreon the store. Thus, the business owner gets wealth and he can turn around and hire some of his patrons who happen to have skills that he may need. And the community grows. It's not true for our hoods, the places we reside. The money comes in, the money goes out. Doesn't change its hand within the neighborhood because the neighborhood is not unified. Greetings from South Africa, my friend. Welcome back. Peace and power. Shabari. You know, Brother Bird, what you mentioned about the Olympics in Asia, the World Cup in the Middle East, what, isn't it going to be held in the slave kingdom of Qatar? And the Olympics is going to be in Japan, one of the last empires to fall to the modern monetary system. You see, right now, as we sit, there are brothers and sisters still in chain. There are brothers and sisters being beat, being brutalized all over the world. There's sex workers in Europe, sex workers in Asia, sex workers in the United States, sex workers everywhere. Oh my God. If you just open up your spirit, you can almost feel their pain. But no one cares because we're too caught up in our own little tragedies, our own cruel arrangements, our own lives. And until you're willing to give it all up, until you're willing quite literally to throw yourself into the abyss, you will never feel liberation. Because right now, folks, I have some very, very bad news. It would appear that humanity will not be uniting. It would also appear that the racial struggles for supremacy will continue. And it would appear that many, many more human beings will be made to suffer because of this unyielding force that is driving us to self-annihilation. There's been many people greater, richer, smarter than I that has pointed this out throughout history. It still falls on deaf ears, and the writings are still being presented to blind people. It's almost as if there is but one way, and that is to destroy, terrorize, and subjugate your neighbors to your will. It has worked apparently ever since ancient times. And this dysfunctional, brutal form of governance is still quite alive today. I want you all to remember this as we go into this election cycle this year. Remember all the lies you're going to hear, all the promises of success. And then I hope that you sit down at your kitchen table, if it applies, and you contemplate your standing in society and your family. And ask yourself, has this thing truly been beneficial for you and yours? Just ask yourself that. And be honest with the answer. Let's continue.
You see how easy it is? For instance, have you white folks ever asked what is black on black crime? Huh? You ask a black person, what's black on black crime? Well, we tired of black folks killing black folks. And that don't bother you white folks? We tired of black folks killing white folks. Now, they didn't say they're tired of black folks killing. Because they're tired of them killing black folks. Then who be left? And if we all went to China tonight, who you think's killing Chinese in China tonight?
The coronavirus.
If we go to Italy tomorrow, who you think's killing Italians in Italy?
The Rosicrucians.
And if 98% of all white folks that was murdered in America last year was murdered by white folks, if y'all ain't talking about white on white crime, how y'all treat us to talk about black on black crime? You kill where you live. And if you black folks tired of black folk killing black, join the Urban League, NAACP, get with Jesse Jackson, push, get out here and join us and integrate this country. And I guarantee you, if I'm living over in that white suburban neighborhood and my old lady make me mad enough to want to shoot somebody, I'm not going to get in my car and drive back to the ghetto. So, but all you have to do is just listen, huh? They got all kinds of stuff on TV, but as long as it's these big corporate America putting it on there, turn on TV and they're talking about I can't think of the pill they give you for men.
Oh, Viagra.
No, the other one. Viagra is a 2.5 hour erection. This other one. Come on, help me, y'all know. See, Alice, white folks, you know what it is.
Yeah.
And if you white folks don't believe there's a difference between black and white, they tell you if you have a 4-hour erection, go to the emergency room. In my neighborhood, a 4-hour erection is called a treat. You go to the damn drugstore and tip the pharmacy.
Speaking of,
and they say erection right in front of your children. So my grandson, 4 years old, walked up to me and said, "Granddad, what's an erection?" I said, "Go ask your grandmother." As I said, y'all got to be careful about these sisters. He came back smiling. I said, "Well, what did she say?" She told me that she'll tell me later, but for me to tell you, she hasn't seen one of them things around the house in years.
You were once 350 pounds. 350 pounds, as I understand. You smoked 4 packs of cigarettes a day.
Every day.
You drank a 5th of scotch every day. You were having a good time.
Only reason I didn't do drugs wasn't no room.
I love that story that Bubba always shares. You know, pertaining to the coronavirus, and that's just one of many. Isn't it strange how these outbreaks just pop up at the most pivotal time? Don't forget, we're in the midst of a trade war. The Chinese Traditional Economic Center, they're basically Manhattan or Wall Street district, gets hit. No one says nothing. Then we'd have famine in Kemet. Locusts shredding crops, destroying dreams. But no one really takes notice. My friends, the culmination of all these different events is only leading us to one conclusion: one fascist world government. Only through a totalitarian, authoritarian regime can plagues be properly managed, can disputes be squashed and quelled, and will young people finally learn to respect the useless elders? You see, the system is being backed up by us on an individual level because at some point in time, kiddos, we decided to trust in it instead of trusting in self. And don't forget to wash your hands. Viruses and bacterium is real.
And look at you now. Obviously, something's happened. Something happened. What happened? What got you on that whole health kick? You created some wonderful nutritional products that really took off.
Happened here in Chicago. A black woman, way before anybody knew about the human body and what you should eat, named Dr. Fulton. And she sent me, she had a health food store. You see, I thought good nutrition is whatever you was eating, if you liked it, it didn't run out till you got enough. And I thought bad nutrition is if it ran out before you got enough, that was bad nutrition. And it was funny, I drink a fifth of scotch every day and smoke full pack of cigarettes every day. And nobody ever called me a nut. When I went into health, they said I was a health nut. And I came up just like everybody else. Doctors, that's all I knew. This 98-year-old woman went to see the doctor. She said, "Doctor, my right knee hurt." He said, "How old are you?" She said, 98. He said, "That's why your right knee hurt." She said, "Doc, my left knee is 98 and it don't hurt." And it was that, and then trying things and seeing it and then feeling good. Mm-hmm. I mean, I didn't come out of no health family. And then one day, I realized I hadn't been sick. And then I went on a fast to protest the war in Vietnam. And I used to drink so much whiskey that I'd wake up in the morning and I couldn't move, the pain in my stomach. I just have to run and give me a cold Pepsi Cola or something, or crawl across the floor. And then after about 18 months of being a vegetarian, I didn't even know what vegetarian, I never heard vegetarian. Because back then, when I stopped eating meat, when you went to a restaurant, they gave the vegetables, well, it's called side order. You order whatever you want, and the rest of it went with it. You coming in, not gonna order this steak and talking about this side order, they wouldn't even wait on me. But 18 months, my sinus trouble left, and mine was so bad, if I moved within a 50-mile radius, I'd have a sinus attack. Now remember now, I'm still drinking and smoking. And then 6 months after that, my ulcers disappeared. And then that's why I slowed up and said, wait, it must be something to not eating animal product. And we call it, meat. No, it's called flesh. Meat is called the meat of the apple, the meat of the orange. See how they switch words on it? The meat of the nut, And the three strongest animals in the jungle, the gorilla, the elephant, and the rhinoceros, they ain't never ate nothing but fruit.
Hold on. He was just talking about rhinoceros, gorillas, and elephants being the strongest animals in the jungle, not eating meat. But look how strong they are. And even on the farm, the horse, the ox, the cow, all tremendously strong animals. And they don't eat meat. It is what it is, y'all. The reason why they want you to eat meat instead of plant matter, just on a purely economic level. The more resources it takes to make that meat products could have been diverted to make grain products to feed more people at a cheaper cost. But in order to keep costs up and also medical prescriptions to cure the elements from eating such matter as blood and flesh, it's more cost effective and more effective in general to fleece the people by feeding them blood and pus in the form of meat having them go to these pill pushing doctors to prescribe them medications to help them to continue to eat the poison that they shouldn't be eating to begin with. This is the system. This is where you're at. Instead of building bridges to unite people of all tribes, we build military industrial complex to ensure that one day we can go in there and kill these people physically. Instead of loving them spiritually, money is being invested right now as we speak to ensure that we can kill people physically. And you all are cool with it because you've been programmed to believe without the military, you have no freedom. No, it's without God, you have no freedom. And the farther we go down the road of denying the Most High his proper due, and we look towards these politicians, we look towards these think tanks, we look towards these special interest groups, and least, but the most important one, we look towards the military to give us our freedom, to allow freedom to be a part of our lives. It will never happen because that type of freedom comes with a cost that you cannot repay. And it's not true freedom. It's only freedom to operate within the perimeters or the laws that they decide for you. You see, many of us are scared of losing your 401k, scared of losing your home, scared of losing your social position. It's all about fear. And it's all about control. You see, many of us are not in control. We appear to be captains of a ship, but I'm here to tell you what you're seeing is an illusion. There is no ocean, there is no ships, there is no cargo, there is no crew, and there are very, very few captains. What we are truly experiencing is collective deceit. We're experiencing a world in which truth and justice are presented in the form of who can oppress and murder and who just has to shut up and take the abuse. Now, once you figure out which side of the spectrum you're on in that dynamic, then you begin your walk to liberation. Then you can see how holding on to the trinkets and baubles is quite literally holding on to your own chains and shackles. But most people are not going to come to that conclusion. They're just going to be so thankful that no matter what situation they're in, they're not on the bottom rung of the totem pole. Let's continue.
My problem was that once you do something that dramatic, all my black friends, they became scientists. How come you don't eat no meat? What do you do for protein? Well, when you love people, you can explain things to them and it gets through. I said, well, the three strongest animals in the jungle, the gorilla, the elephant, and the rhinoceros, well, they don't eat no meat. Matter of fact, the meat you eat don't eat meat. See how simple it is? And matter of fact, protein, there's a lot of protein in a steak, but cows don't eat steak. See how you have to do it? And then little by little, and then when I lost the weight, I'll be honest, I don't think I could have lost the weight had I not been fasting. I went 40-day fast to protest the war in Vietnam. And then I extended it to another 40 days. So I went 40 days on water, 40 days on fruit juice, and 40 days on fruit, and 40 days on water. And when I got through, I was 92 pounds.
Wow. Down from 350.
And I had stopped smoking and stopped. I didn't mean to. See, I advocate that people belong to AA to take a drink on the way because that other stuff ain't worked. But drink is the 13th step. And so what I did is, had I stopped smoking and drinking at the same time, then I probably wouldn't have been here now. Because I would have thought it was the smoking and drinking that changed it. But I was smoking and drinking, and the only thing I had changed was animal product. Anything died starts decomposing. Decomposition is mucus and pus. You can retard decomposition by refrigeration. But is your stomach a refrigerator or incubator? So it speeds it up.
Right there's the most truest health advice ever given. Whatever you consume decomposes in your gut. And if your gut was refrigeration, it would retard the pus and the bacterium. But if it's an incubator, it grows it. It grows the sickness by what you consume. Eating meat or not eating meat is your personal choice. But that one fundamental change amplified his lifespan. You have to understand, especially our community, the dietary regimen that we were presented with was one of nothing but sugar, fat, and death. If you want to get the weight off you, what you need to do is stop consuming the stuff that puts it on you. If not, then you will not change the outcome. It's going to be one of bloatedness, one of sickness, and one of inevitable death. And even if you stop eating meat, you're still going to die, but the quality of life will be radically different. Let's continue.
I don't have no problem with how you eat. I have a problem that the people who's ripping you off do not tell you. And it's hard for you to listen to somebody else when all the stuff you eating that's bad, your mother gave it to you, your church gave it to you, your state gave it to you. So why would you believe somebody else? And so when you sit and you look, are you all aware that nowhere on this planet that's not locked into some kind of money financial arrangement with us will take our food from this country because it's genetically engineered? And if you know anything about Europe, they call it Frankenstein food. And they will not take your potatoes, because all white potatoes and red potatoes is genetically engineered, and there's a hormone in there that one day you'll find out about, but it might be too late. And none of them countries will use it. And the whole world's laughing at you now because it's a strange phenomenon that's going on. We don't understand. Up until this year, 98% of the folks died from the flu was 65 and over. Y'all been reading that? This year is different. This year, 87% of the flu deaths is 65 and down, with the highest number from 36 to 20. And all over the world, they laughing, saying genetically engineered potatoes. They're getting it from the fast food. Now let's look at it. China's the most populated country in the world. They've had 300 cases and no deaths, no fast food, no potatoes from here. Okay? India, populated, 37 cases. Russia, none, but you know how they lie. And so it's that whole thing. Now, 3 top killers in America. People ask me, I'm 77, right? They say, you look so well. How do you know when you're getting old? You know when you're getting old. When somebody compliment them beautiful alligator shoes you wearing and you barefooted. You also know when you're getting old when you go in a restaurant and order a 3-minute egg and they make you pay in advance. The number 1 cause of death in America is sleep deprivation. Number 2, dehydration. And number 3, lack of physical fitness. All of them are free, all of them is a gift from the universe, but we don't have time. Then you have to pay a price. So I was telling my wife the other day, I'm 77, she's 72, and we don't have a prescription between the 2 of us.
Wow.
And that's, you know, that's, you know, and so if you drink the water and walk. This black woman came up to me and she said, you know, you say walk, but I got a bad leg. Walk bad. Walk the same way you walk when you go buy them lottery tickets. I'm sorry, you.
That's okay. It's just about time. I want to give the audience a chance to weigh in here and ask you a few questions. But so get ready. If you have questions, we're going to have someone walking around the room with the mic. But I just want to go do a real quick riff with you.
Yes,
please.
On
some names. Because you just know so many people and know so much history. And I just want to give me a one.
Brilliant. It just is all their life difference. I come out ghetto with no education. I'd be scared when somebody called me dad. So she said, Dad, she was like 7 years old. Said, we doing this essay, and I had a choice to do it on space astronauts or do it on the family. So I decided to do it on family. And I asked Mother, can I interview you? And I said, yes. So she.
Right now, we're going to jump. We're going to do something unexpected. Hold on. Physics and Science YouTube.
Yeah, and so today I will be talking about physics. And I've called it Talking Physics. So we ran unified theory of each videos. We have a grand unified theory in somewhere. And if you want to check out the videos at any point during or after this.
So while we're getting ready to watch,
welcome to Mattress Direct, where
we're getting ready to watch something that's current. Apparently brilliant. Now, while we ridicule people who are book smart or just intellectually astute, we're ridiculing the very foundation of a new society. So the next time you run out talking about nerds, geeks, lames, Sister Janice, peace and power, I want you to realize you're not helping the problem. You're amplifying it. Let's continue.
Is a detector. It stands 50 feet tall, weighs 14,000 tons, and yet it's meant to detect the tiniest particles in the universe. Detectors like CMS, like this one, can only be found in one place, the largest scientific facility on Earth. Why do you build this along with an underground tunnel 27 kilometers around and powerful superconducting magnets? Why do you accelerate particles so small we could never see them with a microscope close to the speed of light and smash them together? What even is a particle? What exactly are these detectors for?
You better look at this room. You had better look at that room, and you better notice something right off the bat. You see, while we're sitting here pretending power, those who really have it are wielding it. Those who really, truly possess it hide in the shadows. So you can keep on peacocking all you want. Keep on getting the flashiest, dashiest, blinkeringest junk. But the real power is in knowledge. The real power is in able to manifest your thoughts and ideals into the 3D realm. Brother David, peace and power. Welcome to the show.
And what is it like to work at and visit the most expensive scientific experiment in history, CERN? Hey, I'm Diana and you're watching Physics Girl. If you've seen my 2 previous videos on antimatter and dark matter, then you know that over the summer I visited CERN in Geneva, Switzerland. This is my face seeing CMS for the first time. When you visit CERN, you need to drive pretty far along winding country roads to get to one of the 4 main detectors situated along that 27-kilometer ring. To go underground, you need special access, and usually you only get to go see one detector because it's a whole process. You get your helmet on. Oh, I gotta put on some helmets. Oh, thank you. You go through security doors one by one. You descend 100 meters in an elevator. You get briefed on not using the stairs if anything goes wrong. And you stop to admire the strange signs and equipment. And if you devote 2 entire days of your life, you might just get to see a couple of the detectors, like we did. We were there for a while. I think they wanted us to leave. We're about to go down in CMS.
So the elevator is like the safest place to be. So if there's any emergency, that's the sort of meeting point.
This is the video where I get into the essence of CERN. It's the most advanced and expensive scientific lab on Earth, and it's used to study particles. I know, not the most fashionable area of physics upon first inspection, but it's the most fundamental question. It's the one we all asked when we were kids. What are we all made up of? What are the fundamental particles that make up everything in the universe? Oh. Sorry. And how did these detectors go about answering that question? This is what I was most interested in. And it was a bit of a rough start because after 3 minutes of thinking, I realized I didn't even know what a particle is. Turns out that I don't know what a particle is because I never got to quantum field theory in my physics classes. So if you don't know either, join the club. So let's start there. What are these particles that CMS is studying? Like, say, the Higgs boson.
So the Higgs was discovered in 2012.
2012.
July 4th. So we call this Higgs Dependence Day.
The discovery of the Higgs was the crowning achievement of the Large Hadron.
Higgs boson, aka God particle, blah, blah, blah. You don't know about it, you really should research. It's kind of fascinating. But I want to draw your attention to the crowd yet again. You might want to take note and look at the crowd and ask yourself, do you see yourself in the crowd? These are the leading physicists, young physicists, future developers. What do you think they're going to be developing? Resources to help you or resources to ultimately destroy you? It truly is that simple. Yes. Tiny sombreros. Let's see. Let's continue. But one thing about this, kiddos, before we continue, what Brother Dick was talking about, the protein thing, the protein comes from you. The protein comes from your DNA. It synthesizes itself using the energy that you gather by consuming whatever it is you consume. And if you consume the wrong chemicals or the wrong nourishment, your natural ability to create protein specific for your body and your life support system will be altered. Let's continue.
Collider at CERN. By the way, the Large Hadron Collider, the LHC, and CERN are two different things, which I didn't really know going into my tour at CERN. The Large Hadron Collider is the giant ring, the particle collider that is part of the facility, the entire place called CERN. There are actually smaller colliders that were built starting in the 50s. I didn't know any of this. But the Large Hadron Collider is the large ring that collides hadrons. Duh. Anyways, the discovery of the Higgs. The Higgs is the tip of the iceberg when it comes to particles. It's just one of 30 fundamental particles that make up everything in the universe. Take any material, any wood, any frogs, any cats, any aliens, any snatoms, shout out to Derek, any derricks, any non-materials like antimatter or even beams of light. Break them down into their fundamental bits and you'll get 30 fundamental particles. Maybe 31 if you count the graviton, but let's not, because it's not observed. So 30 fundamental particles in the standard model of particle physics. I'm not going to read off all the particles because there are too many, but there are some fun ones to say, like the charm quark and the gluon, and some familiar ones like the electron, the photon, and the up and down quarks. Okay, maybe those are not as familiar, but those are the ones that make up neutrons and protons. So elegant, but the real story is more complicated. The universe is actually made of quantum fields, not particles, if you want to be really accurate. And if you want to know what particles are, because particles are a phenomenon that emerges from quantum fields.
The universe is a collection of these quantum fields.
Or, for the uninitiated, higher levels of vibrations and frequencies. This is science. Basically telling you the same thing that the New Agers were saying. Oh, jeez, man. It should be so obvious what's going on, but yet it still remains in the shadow to most. It's always, and it apparently will always be, about control. About getting you, brothers and sisters, to a point to where you do not vibrate on a higher frequency, so you don't ascend past the spiritual wall that they placed. So while they're spending all these billions of dollars, trillions of dollars, to come to conclusions that most astute yogis, imams, preachers, and other spiritual teachers have come to, just sitting there observing the world on a mountaintop in a meadow, by a river, a foot in a cool creek, understanding that at the end of the day, we are all part of the system called nature. No man is above it, beyond it. We're all restrained within it, but within it, there are still different levels. And many of us, by the way we act, by the way we think, and by the way we were taught, will never ascend past a certain point. And that point is nowhere near personal liberation. Once you figure this out, then you can see all this Mickey Mouse blinkering, all this resources that have been ill-directed is being done for one conclusion, and that is the ultimate extermination of the human species. We have been duped. We have been sold a false bill of goods. But if you were to tell the average man, woman, or child this, they would hate you. Because once you learn the truth, as painful or as liberating as it may be, you can never unlearn it. Let's continue.
For each particle, there's an associated quantum field. Of course, for the photon, the associated quantum field is the electromagnetic field.
What's a field?
What I mean by a field is just having a value, a number perhaps, at each point in space that can evolve with time.
A field is like a grid, like a 3D map onto all of space. It's like a topographical map with numbers, except instead of showing hills and ditches, with a quantum field, you measure something like the energy density of the gluon field. Even if this point in space right here doesn't have an electron, it still has a value for the electron field. Just like if there's no hill on the topographical map, there's still a number value to represent the elevation there. Particles are like little hills in the quantum fields. They're actually vibrations in the field, which kind of starts to make it clear on how a particle can act like a wave. The quantum field exists even if there's no particle in it, just like an ocean can exist even if there's no wave in it. This seems like a good moment to pause for dramatic effect, because all this stuff that we're familiar with, that we typically describe as being made of particles, is actually made of a bunch of fields. I'm not even going to say so cool, because I can't even wrap my head around this. Physics is so bizarre.
But yet this ignorant, and she's self-described as being ignorant, woman is allowed to host this program at the public's expense. And she can't even wrap her head around it. I wonder, how did she get there? Casting couch, perhaps? You know, the point is, folks, that we can listen to her, or we can listen to Bubba Gregory. We can listen to ourselves or our leaders. But whether the truth is coming from an ignorant simpleton or a brilliant genius comedian, it's still the truth.
She said, how did you propose to Mom? And I said, well, Michelle, me and your mother got married on February the 2nd, and you was born on March 28th.
Everything has a numerical value. And the truth of the matter was, he proposed to Mom because Mom was pregnant. There it is. Now let's continue with the nitwit.
More bizarre is that particles are not absolute. Particles can appear to exist for one person looking at the field and not for another, depending on how fast they're both moving, which has to do with changing reference frames.
Now this is where people get caught up. A lot of religious people don't articulate this, but when you have a scientific person talking about CERN, this and that, some religious people bring up the fact that there's faith involved in there. This chick just sat here and boldly faced told you that, fields work like this. Sometimes they appear for some people and sometimes they don't appear for other people, but both people are observing the phenomenon at the same time. Hopefully you guys are hearing what she's saying. That's just like going up into some sort of seance and someone's looking into the crystal ball. Now you're looking into the ball and you don't see shit. But this person's looking at the ball. Oh, I see you going down the road. Oh, you're going to stop and help this wandering traveler who's going to bestow you a precious gift. It's all about the frequency in which you're operating on. Many of us still don't get it.
A particle that can travel at the speed of light will travel at the speed of light. The fact that you're traveling slower than the speed of light means that an observer, a different observer, you can change reference frames.
If you're moving super fast, like close to the speed of light, then the value of the field changes, which is kind of like time dilation, the phenomenon where if you're moving fast, then your clock appears to tick slower than a person who's stationary, which is a real thing that if you've never heard of, then I envy how blown your mind is right now. So this all indicates that the fields are fundamental and not the particles. And once you start to think in terms of the fields, then the experiments at the LHC start to make a lot more sense. Because the LHC smashes protons, which are made of 2 up quarks and 1 down quark held together with gluons. So you might have thought that you get a mess of quarks and gluons out of the collision, like I initially thought. But they managed to get a Higgs boson. It's like you blended up a bunch of fruit in a smoothie and popped out a chicken nugget. But the thing is, the quantum fields can interact.
One way you can see it is there's this sort of instrument or musical instrument analogy where you might have maybe a piano strikes a chord, and if there's other instruments around, there might be resonance, right? So one of the strings on a guitar might start vibrating because the piano is hitting the right note.
So it makes more sense if you think that collisions are creating great disturbances in the quantum fields rather than thinking about particles colliding. You can imagine the energy of one field transferring to another and another, like a vibration in the up quark field causing a vibration in the electron neutrino field.
Or a true revolutionary sending out revolutionary ideals will resonate or vibrate in other individuals who are oppressed. That's why the truth is so dangerous. And that's why past great leaders who have the gift of gab seem to also have a magnetic propensity for lead. We got to see that the people who have put this thing together, all the information I've ever shared on the show, they already have it in spades. Once again, this analogy is so true, but it is kind of dated. We're all quite literally playing a monopoly game that all the property has been developed and they give you nothing. You don't even get $200 for passing go. How far do you think you're going to make it in that game? This is why reparation is so critical. This is why economic viability is intimately attached to physical well-being. And as you're living in a society that the board has already been played, everything's already been set up, then the fact that they know too that reparation is the correct thing to do and it will not be done, that shows you the spirit of the people truly running the show. I just had to keep that reparation thought in your mind. Regardless to all the history that we're going to learn about melanated this, black that, African this, and that, without reparations, it's all just useless noise. It's not going to free you. It's not going to liberate you. One could even argue it may just make you more demotivated, demoralized, prone for falling into traps and tricks. Because when you cannot eat, brothers or sisters, when you cannot afford the nicer things in life, brothers and sisters, then that is a seed of jealousy and animosity that has been planted in your very being. And you mock my words like any seed. Given enough time, it will germinate into one of two things: a tree of hate and envy, or a bush of self-hate and loathing. Because you all know right from wrong. You all know that all sentient life is deserving and wanted of liberation and freedom. And to deny beings this fundamental universal right is a violation of the universe itself. So no matter if the slaves keep giving their labor to the system and the masters keep abusing and exploiting the slaves, that system has to come to an end because it's fundamentally a universal cancer to higher vibrations and higher frequencies. Once you begin to understand this, then you can begin to see the plays that are being perpetrated against you.
or the Higgs field. Speaking of the Higgs boson, which was the most elusive particle for physicists to detect in the standard model of particle physics, I'm not really going to go into the significance of it or what it is because there's so much material out there on the internet about it. But now that we understand what particles are, I want to talk about how we detect the Higgs boson, the insane sensitivity of detecting it, and the crazy methods, because we don't actually ever directly detect the Higgs boson with detectors like CMS. So how do we do it?
The decay products from the Higgs decay are fundamentally indistinguishable from the decay of other particles.
Decay products refers to the fact that particles like the Higgs, which are unstable, can spontaneously turn into other particles.
So a scientist that's trying to find a new species that's invisible, well, what you have to look at the decay products. So let's look for poop, right? And then how do you distinguish this new species poop from other species?
Yeah.
The answer is that you can't. If you produce a Higgs particle, again, you don't see the Higgs. You have a bunch of poop in the forest. That's the challenge, is you have to be super confident in your prediction. And then you have your measurement. You have to go to the forest and actually find this poop. What if you think this is poop, but it's, I don't know, mud? I don't have no idea. Is there anything in the poop that you can use to identify the species? You can see why we need a lot of data. You only produce the Higgs very...
Now can you smell the bullshit, yeah? It's so funny how he uses shit as an analogy to describe his boson that you cannot see, taste, smell, or touch, but mathematically it's there. So now we have numbers that can describe invisible things. So what is the mathematical property of a specter, a ghost, a sprite? What is the mathematical representation of you? If everything in the universe has a mathematical representation, that's what they just said. I can replay it for you, or you can rewind the video and replay it for yourself. What is the numeric value for you? What is the numeric value for liberation, freedom? Let's continue to understand how CERN is sucking up all the dollars, all the rubles, all the pounds. And you, my friend, get no reparations.
very rarely in these collisions. Another way to say this is that most of the poop that you think comes from the Higgs comes from other species. You have to be very confident about your prediction and be very confident about your measurement. If your prediction and your measurement match exactly, let's say you somehow calculate, okay, we're going to find 100,000 poops, and you find 100,200. There's an excess of 200.
Yeah.
Is that significant? So that's why when we discovered the Higgs, we had to have a lot of data. And that's why it took so long, is we needed to compare the prediction to the observation. And when we finally said we did discover the Higgs, it was actually after we had many, many collisions. Sorry if this analogy is kind of gross, by the way, but
I was pretty happy with the fact that you used poop. That was my first thought. I was like, oh, you could use poop.
Yeah, this idiot would be happy about talking about bullshit. This is another throw up in your face. I'm sorry, you got the sombrero, and then you have the Neanderthal, basically, and they're sitting here running a game. They're sitting here running a game. Because all this information that they shared with you, where does traditional religion structures fit in? Where does the prophet, where does the Holy Ghost, where does Buddha, where does Hinduism, where does any of it fit into any of that?
Poop, and I was like, I shouldn't say that. You could also use footprints, and then you said poop, and I was like,
well, yeah, I usually use footprints.
Brother David. Wow. I just farted. What a great segue. That's how the universe works. everything in time and every time in thing.
Okay.
For this analogy, but Sarah encouraged me to go for poop.
Go for the poop.
Go for the poop.
So we're looking for an excess of poop. It all makes sense now. Except why do we need all of that? The giant colliders, the massive detectors. Why do we have to smash protons at such high energies? Well, the Higgs boson is the second heaviest fundamental particle after the top quark. And the heavier the particle, the more energy you need to produce it. E equals mc squared. Thanks, Einstein. So if you transfer enough energy into the Higgs field, you get a Higgs boson. So you need a lot of energy to make particles out of seemingly nothing. But then you need massive detectors to see all of the debris that comes out and all of the particles that those particles decay into, because there's a ton of it. And they're all going really close to the speed of light. So they're going to make it pretty far, pretty fast. So you need massive detectors with massive magnets and massive numbers of wires. But let's rewind a bit, because the whole purpose of making this video is that I went there. I went to see these detectors. So I really wanted to know what it was like to work with them. What's it like to work at CERN?
It's a little bit like a college campus, but it's really dedicated. It's sort of like everybody is on that mission. Let's try to understand the universe. People here are super passionate. I feel like people here would be willing to work almost for free. That their motivation is to understand the universe.
I very much support scientists getting paid for the amazing work that they do, but I definitely understand the excited sentiment, because it was almost as exciting being there, just visiting. So were they colliding particles while we were there? No. See those guys? They were in the beam path. No one is in the beam path when it's on. CERN has been in shutdown since December 2018, and it's going to reopen in 2021. Then they'll close those giant magnetic doors we were looking at, and it'll take an entire day to do so because they weigh hundreds of tons, and you don't want to bump a multi-million-dollar magnet. But it was super lucky that it was shut down when we went, because we got to go underground and see everything. There were wires everywhere. Cables and wires are like the wallpaper of CERN. And the internationalness was so noticeable. Every person that we met was from a different country.
CMS is a very large collaboration, over 3,000 people.
So what's next for particle physics at CERN? Well, just in 2018, they made some crazy discoveries, like finding evidence of another exotic particle made of 4 quarks, a tera quark, precisely measuring the spectrum of antihydrogen, and making the first 3D color X-ray of a human body, which is based on technology developed at CERN. And in the future, hopefully dark matter.
Maybe not dark matter, but maybe we find some other type of particle that then decays into dark matter. And this other type of particle, maybe it lives pretty long. Like maybe it lives for a while. So that means it can have a collision, and then a particle pops out. Maybe it moves outside your detector, and then it decays into dark matter. So you're missing that. We have our detector 100 meters underground. We're considering to install detector modules in the surface in case one of the particles travels 100 meters to the surface, and then it decays.
I'm super pumped to see what happens when CERN turns back on in 2021, because that collaboration of thousands of scientists and engineers from around the world are digging into the fundamental physics of our universe. And that is cool.
It's hard for me to understand how we would not be fascinated at what we do here. It's really remarkable. And the fact that this all works as well, like I mentioned, all these careful predictions, these careful measurements, the fact that we've made the Higgs discovery simultaneously with the Atlas detector, the Atlas collaboration, to me, it's super cool.
Thanks for watching, and happy physicsing.
Yes. 2021, y'all. Brother Murders, welcome to the show. That is the date. There's killer robots. Well, I just want to say thank you to all the people who've bared with us. Thank you for all the confidential informants from all over the world, sending information, tips, ideals, and most importantly, thank you, listener. You all, that haven't commented, but you still listen. You never thumbs up, but you're still here. Thank you. Because I know these words are reaching the people who needs to hear them now. even though I want this show to be for those to come in the future, I know there are people now getting benefit from it, and I'm glad. So this will conclude TPIM SR Live for today. Today's date, February 17th, 2020, the year of our Lord. As always, brothers and sisters, live your life with integrity, without hate, envy, or greed. And as always, please, 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 let's try to be kinder to each other, brothers and sisters. Peace in our power, unity in our victory, and dignity in our respect. Liberation. I'm out.